All right, ASU hockey. Let's talk some puck, Chris. I don't know if you were up for the gold medal game at 6 a.m., but it was quite
Watch the whole thing.
quite riveting stuff. Hockey's so fun. All right, but ASU hockey season hasn't been quite as fun as that Olympic game was. Near the conclusion of the season, 8th place in the NCHC. They're just 1 point up on Omaha. That 9th place team is the only team to not make the NCHC conference quarterfinals and then the tournament as a whole, obviously. At the end of the season, Omaha hosts Miami, who's another team in the bottom half of the standings. So that's a much easier task to try and earn some points than what ASU has. ASU's playing number 8, Denver, at altitude. Greg Powers has talked about, day 2 especially, how the altitude can really start to get to the players. I grew up in Denver, so I'll be there, and I always I grew up there, so whenever people talk about altitude, I'm like, I don't know, man, I just
Fully acclimated.
I'm acclimated. But so ASU won on senior night versus Omaha last weekend 6-3, and then on Friday night lost, not as similar as a result. And Greg Powers said, basically, he said the first 5 minutes they played really well. They scored a goal, and then Omaha scored 1 minute later. And he said they looked like they didn't care. They played like they didn't care. The effort wasn't there. And he said, I know they care, but they didn't play like they cared. And that's not a great game to play like you don't care when your season is on the line and, they know that their season's on the line. So that's kind of concerning.
I think that's concerning for several reasons. But the biggest is you don't want to have a coach who can't reach his players, which he also said, not that long ago, followed by concerns about whether or not they're actually giving their all with their season on the line. They had a great season last year, second in the NCHC in their first season in this tougher conference, right? They lost a lot of their players, a lot of their best players. Greg Powers made some decisions to go more inexperienced. He added a bunch. They have their most freshmen that they've had, and they're on the younger, more inexperienced side. And they lost 2 of their best players, Colin Potter and Jack Beck, to season-ending injuries. And look, those things are very difficult to overcome. I don't think that they were going to lose those guys, given the makeup of their team and where they were at, and they weren't going to make an NCAA tournament or anything like that. But it's still incumbent upon a coaching staff to make sure that your guys are playing with a sense of urgency and purpose and trying to be the best version of themselves and maximize their season and build for the future, individually, their own careers, and collectively what we're trying to do at ASU. And when coaches, it's always a concerning thing. When coaches say that they can't reach their players or that guys aren't playing hard, that's a check mark against those coaches. And if that is anomalous, let's say that we fast forward in a year from now, that wasn't a concern, okay, then that was maybe a one-off. But if that stuff happens again, then you go, okay, well, the players are largely different. What is the thing that is continuing to be an issue? And I think a lot of this stuff nowadays, Gabby, and really probably forever in college sports, but when you have all these players that are coming in from different places and you have to have them gel and come together and have a sense of community and purpose, it makes the job of the coaches really tough to be able to get them to be fully invested and bought in and understand your culture. But also, that's where great coaches and great programs distinguish themselves. And you'll remember there was a viral moment from North Dakota's assistant coach who basically alluded to this, not even alluded, he said these players are at ASU because it's a different it's an enjoyable lifestyle, right? You come to North Dakota because you want it hard. Because they don't have all of those nice, fun, things that you can do in Scottsdale and Tempe, right? And that's not a good look when you say those things, and then your coach is saying he can't get through to the players, and then he's saying that they're not playing really hard. The coaching staff has to, identify people who have the right type of intensity, makeup, to build the right leadership, to have them in place so they demand those things of their teammates. And then you need to make sure that the competitive DNA of the players that you bring into the program meet the standard that you have already set and what you have as your expectations. Otherwise, you're going to be knocking your head against the wall, as Greg Powers, I'm sure, has been at times this season, trying to get these guys to have his level of fire and passion and determination. And ultimately, I hate to say it, but it's coaching that determines whether or not that is in place or not. And you can give him a do-over, a mulligan for a season like this once when you have the type of catastrophic injuries that they've had. But there's no coaching, we would never cover a football team, a basketball team, where we didn't say the exact same thing. And Greg Powers, I think, has done a great job to get ASU to this place as a hockey program. Having Mullet Arena, being second in their first NCHC season, the type of recruiting that they've been able to do, the caliber of the players that they brought in from a talent standpoint, NFL draft picks and the like, all those things are great. Okay, now you have to actually develop them at a high level. They've had lots of giveaways of the puck. Defensively, there's been lapses all over the place that you can't have and expect to also be a really good team. They've been very top-heavy in terms of their production on the offensive side. When those guys have gone out, they haven't gotten enough from their other players. Okay, that comes down to the talent identification, the DNA of the makeup of the people that you bring into the program, and the leadership that you have in your top players to expect the same thing from the guys beneath of them. And all of those things come down ultimately to coaching.
Well, Greg Powers got the extension until 2030. That's a fully endowed contract. The ASU hockey head coaching position is now a fully endowed position, regardless of who's holding it. So will be interesting to see how things play out until then. Another interesting thing to note, I mean, we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier in the season, but ASU's strategy this year was to go so heavy on the freshmen, bring in a lot of new guys, and Omaha actually kind of did the same thing. They went like full CHL, the rule change to allow CHL players into the NCAA. They went like full out with that. And those are the two worst teams in the conference. So kind of interesting to see how that played out.
And look, they may get most of their best players back next year. There could be a lot of continuity. Potter and Beck could be back. A lot of these freshmen who came in could be back. Okay, that's good. If they're going to show the type of intestinal fortitude and effort and leadership that you need to have in your program, right? Like, they can take this as a learning experience. They can grow a lot. They're probably going to be a lot better with their individual skill level for all these guys, in addition to being bigger and stronger and older and more experienced, right? All those things are great. So maybe this is just chalk it up to a learning experience where you lost a couple of your best players and had a couple other guys leave to other, because they wanted other experiences or they weren't playing to the degree they wanted or whatever. But you have to take this and you have to learn from this in terms of how you approach roster building, skill development, and having players be fully bought into what you're doing.
Well, he said on Saturday that the biggest thing he learned this season was that success doesn't happen through osmosis. And, he had a very successful year last year, right on the bubble, right on the cusp of getting an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament. And then the last year as an independent team 2 seasons ago, a very good year as well, but it's just hard to get into the tournament as an independent team. So said, I think we all learned that the hard way this year. So we'll see how everything plays out in the off season with transfers, newcomers, and what the season next year ultimately holds. All right, let's